Dear, my feelings are so wanna be with you, doing what you do always. Show me how to live. Just a perfect life. Pleasure in every move we make. Perfect every time. Will you lead me straight to paradise? Will you feed me? Everything is nice. Here kanji ga ippai. Ame ga furitai desho. Just okay out here, anyone could see I'm lonely with my pale machine. I will run with tired tears, living like a dream. I'm born new, my fingers push the buttons, thoughts come through. Mama sama ga ippai desho.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so if we can have your attention, we're going to morph into the afternoon component. And as mentioned this morning by David, we do have quite a few things going on. So now's the time to put away those phones and earbuds and whatnot if you are utilizing them. And I'm going to give you some instructions here shortly in terms of what station you're going to go to. They are primarily located in the library, so we're going to use this hallway here to get there and back. And I think it should be pretty clearly in terms of how the rotation is going to work when I get to that point. But before I do that, Matt here is going to do a quick little bio introduction to the various folks you're going to see over there. They have taken their time to be here. So some have come, as mentioned this morning, from fairly far away to be here to interact with you and talk with you. Your time with them will be short and condensed. So that's that whole, we call it like a speed dating thing almost, in terms of you're going to spend about 8 minutes with each of those folks, and you can move on to the next one and the next one. So you and your team need to soak it in, or conversely, if you have questions, to throw them back at those folks as well, okay? We have taken a lot of that thunder away from Matt already. So I'll pass it over to you, Matt.
Great. Thanks, Darren. Yeah, so I just want to reiterate what Darren mentioned. These folks are here for your benefit this afternoon. So they've got whatever their product is or their services that they do, they've got some information, they've got their widgets here to show you and have a look at and play with and that sort of thing. But make sure you take the time to have a conversation with them. Ask them, where did the idea come from? How did they think of that? Where are they selling? What stage of that? What's their biggest challenge been? So the great lessons that we learned from the panel members here this morning, this is your chance to get that same information from some other entrepreneurs across the region who are doing some really cool stuff. So it's certainly not intended to just be a show and tell where they talk the whole time. It really is intended to be a chance for you guys to have a dialogue with them as well. So very quickly, the list of exhibitors that we have in the back. There is the flight simulator that the school district itself has, which is beside the library. So you'll have a chance to have a look at that. Terry from Ripple, who you heard on the panel, is there with some information about his connected home products that he's doing. The Maker Lab from Prince George, which is run by the Two Rivers Art Gallery, is here. They have a 3D printer and I think some other stuff to show off some of that technology and show you different types of things that you can do with a 3D printer. The school district has its robotics information set up here, so there's space there where you get to have a look at that. Sean from Volcanic is set up. As he said, he's got his Smash Bros stuff set up, so he's thrown down the gauntlet to see if anybody can beat him. So here's your chance to make him look bad and make him be humble in the drive home in the car with me later on this afternoon. The College of New Caledonia is here. They've got some information about a really cool project they've done with drones on the Nechako River and doing some measurements from the air with the drones and how that's feeding into industry information and other research projects that they've been able to assist with. Sterling Roberts is here. He's come up with a really incredibly innovative electrical connector for block heater cords for cars. If you've ever seen people who are driving along the highway and their cords dangling underneath their car because they forgot to unplug it and they yanked it out of their wall, he's got an incredibly innovative solution for that that he is just about to start to manufacture and distribute. There's an aquaponics company here, so you get to learn about a new innovative approach to agriculture and a chance to learn about that new business that's established here in the region as well. And then we have a company called Red Iris, and Herman's here with his sensing technology, which he just told me what it was, the first portable spark detection system. So it sells to mills and other places where there's fire risk, and so he's developed a new portable technology to help in the safety and the operation of those kind of systems. So we've worked really hard at trying to provide a diverse mix of exhibitors for you to interact with, different kinds of technologies, companies that are at different stages of development. Some of these folks haven't yet started to sell. They're still in the development phase and going through that whole process. So hopefully you find some value in getting exposure to those different stages of business development and different technologies. And I would just reiterate again, here's your chance to have a dialogue with them, ask lots of questions, and find out how they got to this point and what sort of motivated them and what was the spark for their idea. So hopefully you'll enjoy that this afternoon.
Thank you, Matt. So the red carpet is being rolled out for you, so it's your opportunity to take advantage on a whole bunch of fronts. So this is where those fancy name tags come in. So it's going to work this way. If you start off at table 2, and I'll tell you which table you're going to go to first, Then when we say rotate, you're going to go to 3, then 4, then 5. If you start at table 6 and we say rotate, you're going to go to 7 and 8 and 9. Is there any questions on that rotation in terms of the algorithm? Okay, good. There is no 12. So after 10, you rotate back to station 1, okay? So well done. There's always one of those questions in the crowd. So here we go. You're going to have 8 minutes, so we want to get at it. 8 to 10 minutes, so you're going to want to maximize your time. So Team Alpha, stand up. That's where you look at your name tag. Come on down. You're going to go to the simulators. Grab Mr. Sundal here on your way by. Team Beta, stand up. Come on down, Team Beta. You're going to go to Ripple, which is table number 4, station 4. It should be a beta here. That's the little B thing on your name tag. Okay, we'll track those down, then some betas are missing. Team Charlie, stand up. You're going to go to station 3 or table 3 in the library. I forgot to mention that. Go to the library, and you're going to start at the Maker Lab there, okay? Oh, sorry, library is go down the hallway here and hang a right and another right. What did I say, sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, Bravo, yes. Team Bravo, my mistake, stand up. You're going to Ripple, which is station 4 in the library. Okay, so look for that number that says 4 and you're ready to rock. Okay, again, I gotta know my phonetics on that Army thing here, sorry. So Team E or Echo, you're gonna go see Mrs. DeVald. You're at station number 1 in the library, so come on down and head over there. She'll be in the deep corner. And then we'll go really fast here. Team F, come on, stand up. You're gonna go see Mr. Arosena. Team F or Foxtrot. Table number 10, okay? Team Golf, you're gonna stand up. You're gonna start off the gaming station there, the volcanic, and that's number 8. Team Hotel, stand up. You're gonna go to CNC, which we didn't mention this, Matt may have missed. We have drones and a hydraulic innovative system there to showcase. You'll find out real quick. So Hotel, stand up. Head there to table 9. And then lastly, Juliet, come on down. You're going to start out at Sterling, which is table number 5. Thank you very much. All right. Slick. And the rest of you, of course, you're more than welcome to just peruse those stations we have in the library. Check out our cutting-edge flight simulators, the only ones in Canada. And thank you.
I love most was when you told us that story about delivering papers at College Heights.
almost,
And I was hoping that you were going to tell that today.
I almost asked it, but I knew I didn't have enough.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, I left. Yeah. You are a good director, my friend. Thank you. So my name is Manu Madoke. I'm an assistant superintendent with School District 91. I'm pleased to welcome Dave Cameron, who's the executive director of Yale, and Georgie S., who is a graduate of Yale, graduated from Coquitlam High School a couple of years ago, and now is pursuing studies at SFU and nurturing his company. Georgie, what is it again? Searing Technology, Inc., and he'll tell you a little bit about that. So this video is intended to tell our teachers, students, career counselors, parents, a little bit about what's coming to us in September 2018. And we're in partnership with Yale, but we're going to call it Entrepreneurship 12, most likely. But I want to ask David, tell us the history of Yale and where it's happened in school districts across the province.
So Yale started in 2011, and it was started by 3 entrepreneurs who had all come from a family business background, and they recognized the advantages that they had grown up with around the dinner table, and the conversations and the dialogue and sort of what they had been exposed to. And they had all met through another organization where they were supporting high school students on Saturdays in downtown Vancouver in a major law firm, hearing from speakers and mentors, and then flying them internationally to compete. And back to back, having these Vancouver teams win, and said, okay, we're doing something a little different here, but we want to make this more widely available. They had all attended public schools. They had all sort of gone to high school around Metro Vancouver. And so they approached a superintendent, specifically Chris Kennedy of West Vancouver School District, who immediately loved the idea and said, you know what, we're really good at providing opportunities for kids who want to excel or go deep in the arts, in sciences, in mathematics, in sports, in trades, but we don't have something for a really deep, real-world learning experience in entrepreneurship. And so within 4 months, Yale was born as a partnership between West Vancouver School District, the founders, and specifically Entrepreneurship at UBC, which is an entrepreneurship education acceleration arm at the University of British Columbia. And so over the last 5 years, it has grown to now supporting high school students across Greater Vancouver and Metro Vancouver. 250 high school students right now are going through the program. They take a course on entrepreneurship. It's credited for, towards their graduation, and it's year-long from September to June. And they hear from guest speakers and mentors, and they're put into groups matched with a mentor, and they go out into the community, discover challenges, opportunities, and have to come up with a solution to that, a revenue-generating solution to something that they're seeing in their local community or perhaps globally. And it all culminates in them pitching to investors and entrepreneurs at the very end of that. And so we're now 5 years in. We're working with School District 91 to have our very first program that we're launching and supporting in partnership with the district in fall 2018. And we're continuing to expand and support education, specifically cultivating entrepreneurial thinking in young minds, both across this province and ultimately across Canada.
David, I wonder if you could just comment a little bit. We've had this conversation about equity in terms of public education outcomes, and we know that there are opportunities for kids who live in urban centers for these types of things. Tell us a little bit about why it's important both to Yale in terms of working with School District 91 and up north, because you know now our unique challenges in terms of how we're spread out for high schools, that type of thing. So can you just talk a little bit about the vision from Yale in terms of expanding to northern British Columbia?
I think our mic has died here, so I'm going to switch mics on this one, actually. Oh, turn it down. Okay. So our model, so basically when we invite in about 15 to 20 business and community leaders, entrepreneurial leaders into high schools. We try really hard to make sure that those leaders are invested in the community in which these students reside in. And ultimately where they can build personal connections with. And potentially see a future for themselves there. And in a lot of rural economies in cities and areas outside of major urban centers, there's this feeling that if you're smart, you have to go to the big city. And part of that, and I know having grown up in, you know, close to Vancouver, but definitely out in the Fraser Valley, I didn't know individuals invested in that community that I could look up to and aspire towards and understand sort of what they were doing, what their career was. And so, you know, as Yale partners with School District 91 in the Nechako Lakes region, it's very important for us to make sure that the leaders in the classroom represent people who invested in that region as much as possible. And so from day one, we've never felt that this is a Vancouver-centric or a city-centric organization and model. It's very much about ensuring that, you know, any student in Canada has an opportunity, at least, to take a very deep entrepreneurial learning experience while still in high school. And so it just sort of fit right in, and, you know, we're going about that mindfully. We're piloting our very initial sort of northern expansion with School District 91 and dedicating our time at that to figure out exactly what some of those nuances are and how we need to tweak that. You know, with schools so far apart, you know, we're already in conversation to say, well, how do we utilize technology? How do we do live video conferencing to still ensure that there are in-person connections made, but people from various geographies still being able to participate together and not let transportation and that, you know, that geography stop people from participating?
I'm going to give a question to Georgie, because that piece about this isn't just a school curriculum. It's not just a teacher teaching a group of kids. There's a connection to the community in terms of who's invested and who's providing mentorship. So when Georgie spoke this morning, he spoke about his mentor when he was in Yale, and I think his name was Jason. Yes. And it sounds like a tough mentor because he challenged your group. But can you, Georgie, from your experience back then, if you put yourself back as a high school student, you had a teacher, but then you also had this community mentor. What was that like?
So this was actually the first time that I had somebody outside of the school environment teach me about something and actually take me under their wing and the whole team and show us how things are supposed to be done and how to apply ourselves. So that was a very refreshing for us. He was working on his own software company, and the fact that he had first-hand experience that our teacher didn't have was very, very refreshing. And it made it really unique. He could bring in advice and recommendations from what he has done from his personal experience, and then we could actually take that on and not just use it theoretically but apply it practically. And so I think having a mentor was one of the most beneficial things that I've ever had. And I've moved on. I've had different mentors since then, and always having a mentor to guide you has been one of the best things, because I'm not sure what I'm doing, and I'll be completely honest.
None of us do.
Yeah, fake it till you make it, right? But having someone there who could notice if you're off your track a bit earlier, and if you're doing something that could be done in a better way, is really helpful. And I think that's what the mentor did. He kind of pushed us in the right directions, and he was like, okay, you guys could be doing this better. And we listened to his advice, and we went, and it actually worked out. So sometimes we didn't listen to his advice, and because we thought that what we did was better, and in some cases it did work out, some cases it didn't. So, but the fact that he was there to help us really helped with Yale.
I really enjoyed your story today about the mentor, but we've chatted about this, and the new curriculum asks for our students to have authentic learning outcomes, not just out of a textbook, and it doesn't get any more authentic than involving a community leader or a mentor in terms of giving guidance. So, David, you spoke in this a bit for our community leaders, but we started with Yale about 8 months ago in terms of our initial conversations, and David strategically thought September 2018, because it allowed us to build connections with our community, teacher champions, all of those things. So there's a reason why it's been a slow rollout, to make sure that we're successful when it happens. But so David, a little bit about what do we need to be thinking about as a school district, or our career counselors are connected with their business communities, in terms of how do they begin to nurture this idea of who could be mentors in our small communities? Because I'm certain that we do have people who are innovative-minded, entrepreneurial, but they might not know what they're stepping into. So what does a mentor need to know beforehand in terms of if they want to get involved?
So, for anyone who wants to be a mentor or involved in Yale as even a guest speaker, I sort of separate the two. Someone as a guest speaker is going to come into a classroom and, very similar to what Georgie did this morning, share his or her story and engage in a dialogue with students. And they're representing often different sectors, careers, ethnicities, life paths, right? To the students. A mentor is someone who is really invested in their time and energy in coaching and guiding a group of students. We ask each of our mentors to commit to meeting with a group of students up to once a week for 3 months. That's a big commitment for some people. And it has to be someone willing to not just give the answers and let learning flourish. And so of all the tasks of Yale in our organization, finding the right mentors is probably the most tasking and the most critical. That mentorship relationship really is what drives some of the experience for the students. And from an educator standpoint, I just came back from presenting a workshop with the BC Teachers Association Super Conference to teachers, trying to say the same thing. Here are the lessons that we've learned. If you want to engage external people in the classroom, here's what works and here's what doesn't. And one of the first things I say is, outsource it as much as you can. Many of our educators are already highly weighed down with a lot of the task, responsibility, and time demands on them. At the one end of the spectrum, you've got an organization like Yale who takes all of that sort of out of your hands, but in its very simplest form, it's reaching out to organizations like the Innovation, I'm blanking on ICS, Innovation Central Society, and Matt Hutchinson there to say, hey, Matt, this is what I'm looking for, and can you make sure that this is on point, that I'm looking for the right thing, and who are 2 or 3 individuals that I should reach out to and have a conversation with, and that simple task of identifying a champion or individual in the community who can open doors for you, much more efficient. Yeah.
Dave, just curious, is there a mentorship training program? So I'm interested in being a mentor, just not sure, and would appreciate sort of a little bit of guidance.
Absolutely. So we do sort of a half day, 2 hours session with our mentors who are joining Yale for the very first time, and we bring out past experienced mentors to kind of share their stories and experiences as well. But we also do mentor training for the students. So you got to approach someone like Georgie and say, hey, you're going to work with a mentor now, and they're not going to be afraid to tell you your idea is bad. And yeah, right. You don't often hear that directly from a teacher or a parent who very much is invested in your long-term success, and they have no fear in saying that's terrible. You need to start over. And so we work with the students as well to kind of train and prep them on, okay, this is what to expect, and this is how you want to work with a mentor, and this is what accountability looks like. This is how you communicate with a mentor, because a lot of them are very, very busy, but they're very committed too. So yeah.
So I think you get an idea of why we want to be involved with Yale, but I'm going to let Georgie speak directly to students. So in the event that you have students who are like, I don't know, should I take Yale or shouldn't I? Maybe, Georgie, you could just share your experience with Yale and why, for certain kids, this might be something to consider.
Well, when I was in high school, I had a rough idea of what I wanted to do, but I was still feeling kind of lost. And I suppose many students in high school currently do feel pretty lost. They're uncertain of where they want to go and what the future holds, so which university you're applying to, and what degree you're going to take and what you're going to study. So I took Yale because I just wanted to try a new thing and see if it works out. And ultimately, I found something that I believe is my calling. Through Yale, I think I got to tap into a lot of things that I liked. So I wasn't sure. At one point I wanted to be a marine biologist, then I wanted to be a writer, I wanted to be a physicist. And then I realized that I don't really necessarily have to pick either one of those, because as an entrepreneur, I get to try and have my hand in a lot of different fields and do what I personally enjoy, right? So that's what really gravitated me towards Yale. It's the whole idea that every single thing that I wanted to do had something to do with building things from ground up of my own and being involved in doing something new. And here, it's like I was given the opportunity to try something new and do it myself. And I had somebody there to guide me and be like, this is not good, or this is good, and you should do more of this, and this is how you would do something like that. So that kind of accelerated where I was planning to go. I would have ended up, I think, in the same spot, but without Yale, it would have taken many, many more years. So.
You know, culturally, we think of entrepreneurs as people who start companies. And, you know, I'll draw a parallel, you know, and talk about something called entrepreneurial thinking. So in the last 2 decades, we've defined what design thinking is, and it's a skill set that's valuable. And it started with designers, but it's valuable for people regardless of whether they're a designer or not, and they can apply it. Very similar with entrepreneurial thinking. So it's a skill set that even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, is very valuable for you in your career. It's valuable for you in your learning and in post-secondary studies and beyond. And there's a lot of research now coming out from the tech sector, from employers in general, saying, actually, hold on, we're looking for people with interpersonal skills and with creativity and innovation skills. And that entrepreneurial thinking skill set is very important for anyone, really, to be able to self-develop and move beyond. The other piece as well, and a big value I think that Georgie hinted on, is you don't need to come into this program if you know you want to be an entrepreneur. In fact, and you don't need a business idea. In fact, that's one of the biggest pushbacks. Kids say, oh, I didn't join because I didn't have an idea. You don't need an idea. It's the whole process. You know, hearing from guest speakers and individuals and mentors coming in, you get to hear about a lot of different careers that you didn't know exist, jobs that didn't exist, and people's career paths. And that's what I was often hungry for. Even coming out of post-secondary, I didn't see a specific thing that I was ready to commit my life to, I was passionate about. But you learn from others to see how they've navigated over the next 10, 15, 2 years since high school, and why they've made certain decisions. So it is definitely for those willing to explore and willing to commit to some fun and engaging work along the way.
Well, I know from a school district we're very excited about it, and I know that this link, you know, we're going to share this video, but you got access to the panel that happened today at the first Tech and Entrepreneurship Summit. You've got a chance to listen to Georgie's keynote, but at the end of that, if you still have questions, we're in touch with David. We can figure out those. We've still got some time to plan this, right? And so there are no bad questions. There's things that we could have missed in our planning. So we'll cover those things. But anyway, I want to thank you both again for flying up to Vanderhoof and joining us. We'll have to get you out to our other communities next time. But yeah, so thank you very much. Thanks, Kenan.
Yeah, I think that's great. And thank you.
Yeah.
I think that was perfect.
That was good, Dana. That's good for the, should we talk about our I'm enjoying this. I'm going into a whole new line of work like the.
Yeah, you missed your calling, I think.
Yeah, you think so?
You might get one.
Oh.
Minutes with menu.
So am I good to go, Kenan?
You're looking good. Thank you. So, because we've got so many guests here today for the Tech and Entrepreneurship Summit, Paul Broussard is here. Paul grew up in Vanderhoof, but he grew up in Prince George, but he's living in Abbotsford, BC, and is living in Burnaby, but is a mentor, is an official mentor for Yale, and has done it for.
Actually, only one time so far.
Oh, only one time. Sorry. And so I thought that we should do an interview with one of the Yale mentors to get an idea of what that experience was like. So why don't I just hand it over to Paul? Paul, why don't you just speak about sort of your experience with Yale as a mentor?
Sure, thank you. I got the opportunity, I think it was, earlier this year for the first time. And it was kind of funny. It just kind of came about because I was working with a client who happens to be one of my mentors and advisors, a fellow named Keith Hippel, who runs a organization called Spring down in Vancouver. And I happened to be working out of their office. And so was Dave and his coworker Yannicka at the time, and we started chatting, and I hadn't really had a chance to meet them before. I knew who Dave was, but we hadn't really spoken. And then Yannicka was like, well, what do you do, Paul? And I started telling her about what I do. And at the time, I still had my company previous to Volition. We rebranded this summer, but it used to be called Elevator. And I told her, oh, we have a startup consulting firm. I'm a consultant for startups, and this is what I do. And she was like, how are you not a mentor for us, Paul? You have to get on board with this, and you have to sign up, and da-da-da-da. And she told me about the program, and right away I was like, yeah, how am I not part of that? So for myself, I would state that from my own part, when I was younger, we didn't have this kind of support in high school. As far as I knew, we had CAP class, basically, right? And taught you a little bit about business, unless you took some sort of specific classes, but that was only really if you kind of had an idea of what you wanted to do. But I just knew I wanted to have a business, and I didn't really know what that looked like. So I didn't really know of any real support or know where to find it, and I think that's a commonality in general. But I would say that what helped me over the years was this school of, I guess, coin a phrase, hard knocks, of just getting out there and doing it and failing and figuring it out. But at the same time, there's a lot of times where I look back and I go, gee, I wish there was at least some sort of supportive network, even that I had the choice to go, and I could have maybe some of the larger pain points, I could have maybe learned that a bit earlier. And getting to know the Yale program, there's a lot of parts in there where it's like, gee, that's stuff that I really wish I would have learned beforehand. So when they told me about the program, I was like, right away I jumped at it, because I said, if I can be any part of a young entrepreneur's or prospective entrepreneur's journey to even help them in some way and be part of their success, whether it's now or later in life, I have to be a part of that. And the great thing is I'm in a position now to be able to give back and feel that I should. It's part of, like, what's the point otherwise, right? Yeah. So it was good, yeah.
I can speak a little bit to the, so we joined you for the Venture Challenge that was at SFU, and that was the day that the teams culminated their year of learning with sort of their pitches to these actual, I was surprised at the level of questions that the investors asked these kids. Like, it wasn't a make feel good and everybody, there were some tough questions there. And Paul, your team made it to the finals that day.
Yeah, we won.
Was that the Busy Bee?
No, Realtor.
The Realtor. Yeah. But there was this energy in terms of going back, presenting, going and checking with Paul, getting their pitch, and so was it exciting for you as a mentor that day to get to that level?
Yeah, and it was really cool in the sense that in almost just one day, it brought in a culmination of all my experience, and I was able to draw upon my superpowers, as it were, but my experience to be able to come in and say to them, because a real transparent moment that maybe not a lot of people saw, but my team was so nervous. Like, literally, one of them was ready to pass out. One of them was going back into the washroom. The not head guy, but the one fellow, June, he's like all calm. And then the other guy is like pacing back and forth and back and forth. And it's just, I'm looking at them, I'm like, you gotta okay, we got to do something here. So then I basically, I learned an exercise years ago, for example, and I took one of the kids' hands and I just said, okay, now look at me in the eyes. Are you calm? No. Are you calm now? Breathe. Are you calm now? And eventually she calmed down. And I said, great. And you stop pacing over there. You go stand over here and just stand there. And I said, let's try again. And then they all kind of calmed down. They were able to listen. But I wouldn't have been able to do that without my years of experience and going through the same things myself. And the experience was back when I first pitched my first 2 investors, almost 12 years ago. The same thing happened to me. I got super, super nervous. And even though I had a singing background and I was used to stage presence, this was a whole new ballgame. And I got super nervous. And then the person I was with was like, okay, calm down. Look at me in the eyes. Breathe. You're fine. You're going to do it. So it was a great experience, and seeing how they reacted and playing off their excitement and their nerves and their anxiety, and being able to really see that all get reined in. And then I think the real key moment was like the first pitch when they got into the top 5, was it? Seeing them go up and rocking it, and was like, wow, this is cool that they can take all of that and boom, and then we ended up getting second place, which was amazing for a team that when I first started with them, they weren't really sure about their whole concept and what they were going to do and if they could even pitch. And yeah, so it was really amazing to see. And for me, that's amazing to see in young entrepreneurs. So yeah.
So second place in your first year as a mentor, there's some big expectations on you for year 2. Like I think one of the things that I noticed as an educator there were teachers were nervous for their kids, but teachers played second fiddle to mentors that day. Kids went to their mentors in terms of checking their ideas. And would that be normal, David? Like that the last 3 months of the Yale program is when the students work closely with their mentors. That development of that relationship, like, is that normal what I saw? Or?
Absolutely. There are some students who will email their teacher, once a day, once a week during that time to ask for thoughts and advice. But definitely during that 3 months, they're calling, they're sending emails for feedback and advice from their mentors. And you find the educator sort of steps into a role of facilitator and really, making sure that the learnings that any one individual or team have is shared amongst the group. And you really sort of see the educator take those learnings to the next level, and the mentors are able to kind of come in and deal with the hands-on project.
There was a great story from that day. One of the teams, and they had a female teacher, and I don't know what district she was from, but they had 4 kids that were on the team. One of the girls was in COM 11. And so for educators, we know that sometimes we put kids into Communications 11 because they're not going to pass the English 12 provincial. And so some of those kids have this chip on their shoulder in terms of, like, I'm just not that good at oral speaking or writing. But the team made a conscious decision to say, everybody will speak with the cue cards. Just because you see yourself as not, you still have a part on our team in terms of making a pitch to the, and from the crowd, I couldn't have told you who was in COM that day, which from an educator perspective was fantastic. The team supported every member to get there, which is something that we hope for. So this segment, isn't about my stories from that day. It's about considership for us finding mentors in our communities. So Paul, if we had to ask you, in our small communities, and somebody's like, I don't know if I want to commit to 3 months of mentoring high school students, can you help us convince them that maybe this is something they should look at?
Well, I mean, in all honesty, one of the things I looked at, in my own part, I kind of have a system that I have no more than 3 mentorship opportunities going on at any one time. So Yale came in at a great opportunity. I was doing it with Futurepreneur and then with another organization, and then I had an open spot at the time. And so when they asked, and like when it came up, it was like, oh yeah, it's perfect timing. Actually, I have an open slot. But in reality, then when I was looking at it originally and they were telling me about it, I was like, oh, that's a lot of, it sounds like a lot of commitment. But then when it really got down to it, it really came down to like setting aside hour and a half a week and we were able to achieve most of the results. I mean, in my view, good mentorship is more about being their Yoda, their guide, right? It's about showing them the way and not doing it for them. And just exactly what the definition of mentoring is, it's you're mentoring them to do what they need to do. And then guiding them as to like, okay, yeah, you kind of hit it, but here's some things you need to consider, and here's some things, and some of the things I've learned doesn't mean just because I did it is the right way. This is what I've done, and that worked for me, but just be aware that these were the results. So, you know, it wasn't a huge time commitment. I mean, what's an hour a week, really? And it, you know, I can actually turn around and say it flew by like that. Like before I knew it, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, finals are next week. And we're still working on the final business modeling and the deck. The deck was pretty good, but there was a couple of questions about a couple of slides. But you know, we're still sort of working on business modeling. They're doing some prospective client review interviews. They're having discussions with realtors because their thing was a realty tech play. And so they're still like in the midst of this, and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we present to the finals like in a week. And I'm like, holy geez, that went by fast. So yeah, it's not even that big of a commitment. It flies by, and it's not that much per week. So, and honestly, after the end of it all, maybe I'm a bit biased because we got second place. But, but you know, regardless of, I told them before, I didn't care what place they got into. Even before they got into the top 5, I said, just the fact that you got here and you've come up with something and you've put this together in a team environment where, you know, there's all these different complexities, the fact that you actually even got something that actually could be prospectively a real business. Yeah. And to qualify, I don't know if I told you this, but to qualify that, it was a realty tech play, as I mentioned. After they pitched, in the crowd, one of the parents was from CBRE and walked up and said, if you turn this into a real business, I would buy it. And so that's, I mean, how do you know, validate more than that? So, and then when they got into the top 5, then it was like, okay, wow, these guys have really done something here, like amazing job. And that feeling you get from seeing the excitement in their eyes and the pride that they're taking in it, especially for me, because I gauge my success on the success of others. Yeah. That, for me, that was, those are the moments you can't get anywhere else.
So you're back for year 2 with Yale?
As far as I know. As, yeah, if they'll have me, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So did you have some fun?
Yeah, the one thing there, sometimes we have mentors who say, well, I don't know if I know enough. Right? And they're on the edge for that reason. You know, can I mentor? Absolutely, and we work with some great female leaders as well, who a lot of their peers feel the same way, you know, and we care a lot about bringing diversity, not just gender diversity, but definitely gender diversity to the forefront, because we do have almost a 50-50 split between male and female students, right? And it does rise up. Am I qualified enough? Do I know enough? And the quick answer is, if you're feeling tug, yes, and you don't need all the answers. The more important thing is to point them in the right direction, ask the right question, and maybe give them a starting point. It's not about giving them the answers, and they'll figure it out for themselves.
Can I comment on that really quickly?
So for that fact, even myself as a experienced entrepreneur, there was times that it was even great for me because they challenged me at times,
Might not
right?
have the answer right.
No, and so they would be like, well, what do we do with this, Paul? And I'd be like, I'll be honest, I have no idea. But I'll tell you what, I probably know some resources, or there was one part, a specific part of that was, they said, are you sure that this business model will work for realtors? And I said, you know, I'm not even sure. But I said, I'll tell you what, I know 3, and one of them is an amazing guy named Dylan, and you will have to talk to them, or you need to talk to him. So I called him right there at that moment, and Dylan's like, yeah, I'm in. Just tell me when and where. And they actually hopped on the phone and did a conference call right there and interviewed him on the phone. And so, yeah, even though I didn't know, it was, I had the experience to know that, okay, I can find them the resource or help guide them the way there. I can lead. What is the saying? You can lead them to water, but you can't teach them how to drink. Or I don't remember this whole saying, but something along those lines. Yeah, or teach a man to fish, I guess. But yeah, so you don't have to know everything, but it really, I think that's also part of the great part about it, is it reminds you of the humility that you don't know everything. And yeah, and I always say I know enough to know that I don't know everything. And it was a great experience, and even of challenging myself and my own knowledge level and refreshing me on some of the things. And yeah.
So I just had one last question. It was about when the mentor comes into the program, what stage are the kids at? Have they already developed their core business idea, or is the mentor helping them?
Yeah, so they start with an initial idea. And the mentors get to kind of see and hear the students pitch where their initial idea is in a very short format. And then the mentors leave the room, and the mentors decide who they want to work with. And, the mentor is well suited to have to know which group they can add the most value with, which ones that they can contribute the most to. And we find that students' ideas tend to stick within the same industry, the same problem. But the idea changes about 100 times from start to finish, and sometimes 2 weeks before, the students will completely scrap their idea still, like 2 weeks before the final challenge, and redo it all over again. And that's actually the learning process, is learning and thinking critically about what will work, what doesn't, how do you change, how do you sort of pivot on that, and build upon it, and then let go of the way you see the world and see how others see the world.
Can I comment on that? Sure. Yeah, so I have a great example in even of the team that I had, because when we first started out, they pitched it to me, and I was like, coincidentally, I had been introduced to a company that was doing something similar called Morphus, but they were doing it from a commercial level and in the architecture side of things. So, which was like a virtual reality. Both solutions were involved in virtual reality, but one was from an architectural level, pre-build, and then one was for realtors, aftermarket. So, but when they first started out, they came in and they're like, yeah, we're going to sell this to consumers. And I said, how are you going to get this into every home and make this a standard? Like, that's going to be impossible. You got to go to who's selling it. And we went through a whole process of actually figuring out how to pivot the business and what that business model would look like. And it changed actually probably, I think, about 2 or 3 times, even by the time we were done, in terms of, okay, should it be a subscription? Should it be a one-time fee plus subscription? Should it be freemium? Should it be a platform? Should it be an app? There's all, especially, I think that's the crazy thing that even keeps me on my toes now is, 10 years ago, it was basically you had this or this. Now it's like, well, we could build on this, we could do this, we could do that, we could do that, this, that. And there's like umpteen, business models that could work. And it's just finding that right fit. So, yeah, it's a whole process, but I really enjoy going through that process. And to me, it's like problem solving, right? So,
very much
yeah.
So, David, the only last thing I want to comment about is the Venture Challenge. That's a big part of the program. And I know that when we saw it at SFU, it was great. So we chatted yesterday when you were here in terms of our planning for next year. And the school district is committed to the idea of our teams presenting locally to a panel of judges and doing the pitches and getting feedback and all of those things. But we're also very committed to sending our winning team down to the Venture Challenge. So that's just more a statement really than a question, but that's a commitment on the school district's part to say we want to make sure that our kids get a chance to present regularly to a panel of judges, but also our winning team gets a chance to go down and pitch at SF.
Absolutely. In that event, just to clarify as well, it's not just for the students to present. We invite parents to come out and to watch. We often invite out educators that aren't involved in the program to come and watch. We invite our mentors out. We invite out leaders from the community, other investors, etc. And we do invite a lot of students, and even younger, younger than grades 10 to 12, who are interested in learning more about innovation and entrepreneurship. And we're working with different partners this year to kind of grow that event and host a Western Canada Innovation Showcase. So do keep your eyes out for this, and I highly suggest taking a look at it. And if you're in the area, if you're down south around Vancouver or the Fraser Valley, please do come check it out.
We got a nice invite from you last Sure. And again, if we're able to send some kids down this spring to watch it, we'll certainly try and do that. Well, again, thanks you guys for coming up to Vanderhoof and joining me. We don't do these interviews often, but it's fun. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. You know what? It's nice for us to have video footage, and then I can share it with some people. I got a reluctant mentor, and just say, let me share a little video.
Yeah,
YouTube,
no,
and
that's great.
That's helpful.
Certainly.
問題があるんだね Feelings are so 時々変わったね Now today何しましょうかな来て来て as I say 止まったら思い出について思っていつでも大丈夫ね安心して My love 「